Hello, everyone. Good morning. We're here today. Today is Tuesday, December 2nd. Another episode of Frankly Speaking, along with our co-host.
Memo Pastor, good morning, everybody.
So we're didn't have a show or a program last week because of Thanksgiving. But I mean, we have so many things that we could cover today. But one of the things that I was bringing to the table today, of course, is the state of our nation, the state of our state, the state of what county and what state of the city.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts, Memo, regarding any particular area that interests you right now? I know you are a business owner.
Yes. What really is the economy itself? How are we going to address the future? We all talk about certain things that seems to be coming well, but business is slow. We've been impacted by the tariffs and the store. And it's not just transportation, but it's all facets of business. Really, we're picking up the cost. And how are our county dads and city officials going to address that? You know, they can't pass the buck on us. You know, our school districts also are in turmoil because the lack of funding. Now it's going to be directed to the states. And the vouchers, you know, how's that going to work? How's that going to take away from the mainstream of education? Then you're hearing about something that on a self-interest, is the proposal by, our state senator trying to represent us, Mr. I'm forgetting his name.
State representative?
Richard
Raymond.
Trying to eliminate property taxes.
Oh.
And that's going to be something that I would like to consider. Hey, that's not a bad idea for when you reach the golden years of 65. Yes, your taxes are frozen, but why do we continue paying appraised value on properties that might appraise longer? You know, because you paid a certain amount of money.
Yeah.
You know, and then all of a sudden, because as time goes, property value raise.
Well, the only part I heard and read a little bit about this. Go ahead.
Excuse me.
The only part I read or heard about it, and I could be wrong, and the representative or anybody from his office can correct us. It was that it was meant to be a transition that he felt that the state should be funding their schools better. And by removing that burden on the residents of our district and districts and throughout the state, that it would reduce that burden, Memo, and transfer it to the state. And in other words, here state, so you want this, here you have it. Now you fund the schools, but who knows what's going to happen? I don't know if it's something that can actually pass the legislature. I'm hoping that whatever the case might be, that it be the correct one.
Yeah, and when they remember when they brought in the lottery. The lottery was supposed to.
Okay, the lottery was supposed to help state employees get their rents. and see, everybody got a different version of why you had it.
They were supposed to help fund schools. It hasn't. It hasn't. All it did, it created more jobs, bureaucratical jobs that now you have
bureaucracy,
and then you look at it and say, well, where's the money? Show me the money. And
where is the money?
Where is the money? Where is it going to? And I'm sure everybody likes to have likes to gamble.
Yeah.
We're surrounded. Texas State is surrounded by states that allow gambling. Legalize gambling, and guess what? You might create more revenue. For educational purpose, but keep it in line for that. Let's help homeowners maintain their homes. If you go back to the taxes right now, look what we have. UISD is the largest big company employer, and guess what? You buy an average home of $350,000, you're looking for $4,000 or $5,000, and it ain't gonna stop.
I think it's getting to the point where somebody who is employed at UISD could necessarily afford, they can afford a certain home but at the same time, the prices keep escalating that you probably need to have two professionals in each family to actually make ends meet. And again,
Minimum wage does not.
I've always said that minimum wage doesn't do it, but you're going to have a certain amount of income to even afford a home. I mean, I was lucky, and perhaps you were like I was, in a situation where one income could afford a certain amount of dwelling at home.
The prices were down.
The prices were very fair, competitive, and we took advantage of that. And our interest rates were low.
Mm-hmm.
I financed for 15 years, by the way. I don't know, a lot of people get hooked with that 30, but that's the only way they can afford it, if they hook up for
long
30.
term. Yeah. By now, especially with the interest rates now, that you're looking at 7, 8, 9.
And I remember back then it was about whether you wanted fixed interest rate or a variable. Mm-hmm. And at that time I said, well, no, I want to know what I'm going to be paying every month. Right. And even though the charge amount was higher, we were able to meet their needs. And yes, I also come from
you could pay toward a little bit to the interest, to the principal, and you would bring it down.
You could bring it down.
Yeah, there's ways of doing it.
The economy, right?
The economy, yeah.
The economy.
But the economy has to be an economy that is booming. Right now, we have an economy that's being, I guess, controlled. It's like Bitcoin. A lot of people, we got into Bitcoin because it's a lot of money, but it's not a safe investment, I think, because it's manipulated by wealthy people.
Yeah.
And sadly, we have a president that just started his own Bitcoin. And that's another topic that I don't agree with. Why? Because his influence and the money that's being poured into it has to be questioned. It's like you look at all your leading Democrats and Republicans that are in the stock market, they leave office and they're like 240 million. I mean, Truman Best said it. What did he say when he said, you want a
democracy, or do you?
No. He said, you want to make money and become a politician is like being a crook. In those words, maybe I may look harsh on it.
I think that it resonates with some people. It has resonated for years, to be honest with you, where you get the point where everybody thinks every person who's an elected official. I'm not sure why they consider the word politician a negative word. I mean, that is in fact the Latin term for government, for doing this. But anyway, you see those people who use that negativity to right away say that all of them are the same. And I'll tell you one thing, I'm not, because I still live in my same home, and you probably do the same. We're there only trying to make ends meet and make sure that we have a good foundation for our children.
That's what it's all about.
So it's our legacy. That's what we're going to leave. So we're going to make sure that it's set up in the right way. And yes, I have no idea, because I don't participate in Bitcoin. I have no idea how it works, where to go. Stock market, tampoco. Forget it.
To me, it's like if you're going to the casinos and betting on 35, 36 red, that's my favorite number, and hoping you hit it a couple of times.
Yeah. What was it again? Let me write that down.
Roulette, it's a game of chance. The thing about it, you got to have some type of fundamental structure to protect the investors. I've heard about people getting swindled out of that money, or with now modern technology.
Look at this too. Now bring it down to earth. Look at the amount of people, including myself, who had the football season, the football game, Thanksgiving Day.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of money exchange out there.
Oh, hell yeah. Now you have bet online, they induce you to say, well, you're going to get $5 and you're going to get $100,
Yeah.
And it's all, it can become addictive, and then you see people that can understand that they live in the casinos or they live in the slot machines.
Yeah.
They're not called one-armed bandits for nothing, The bottom line is a game of chance.
Well, somebody's drinking the money.
Yeah.
It's not always the participant, but rather the one running the show.
Yeah.
Right?
The house never loses.
Yeah, the house never loses. They have to.
Wow.
And that brings me a good point, because we're talking about government. Government and changing the topic, actually. Government can never fail. It has to survive, because that was the whole idea of having an established rule of order. When people got together, let's say you and me, and then anybody out in the community, 3 or 4 or 5 people, we actually get together and say, you know what, we need to establish something where it's fair and equitable. Well, that's what happened with the Declaration of Independence. That's what happened to our Constitution. People got together and said, we need to make sure we all take care of our needs. Every single one, every one of us needs to participate. So government has a good mentality of it, but when you have somebody who's gonna go in there and try to subvert what's going on, or try to manipulate it, like just your term, manipulate something, we're going the wrong way when that happens.
You gotta remember when the Constitution says "we the people," it wasn't "we the private sector."
Say it.
Or self-interest. When you do that, you have to change. But in government, we gotta have common sense. And we don't. Now today's politician is who throws the most dirt. It's like running a soap opera.
Sure.
Sure. As the world turns, who's gonna.
Well, some of them have been because it kind of wins races. When you throw in a mud and you do the terms and all this, like I mentioned before, calling somebody a communist, calling somebody a socialist, calling somebody a fascist, calling somebody. Those are buzzwords that ignite interest in people. And it kind of makes people think like, yeah, I don't want to be that. Or yeah, that's who I want to be. So it kind of makes elections coming up.
Yeah.
We might have some of that. I don't know.
Oh, it's going to be that. Look at your county race right now. There are some good people that are running for a county judge. You got to judge them on experience. Who on the...
Qualifications?
Qualifications. You have to look at the people with the interest, What have they vested? What have they done? It's not running let's say a popularity or a beauty pageant, or you got to know what they bring to the table. I mean, you have to understand that what
do we expect from a county judge? What do you think? What do you think we need?
You need leadership. You need to reinvest. What is the county going to be doing? It's just going to be life towns. Then now they changed the name to 1848. I mean, what does that mean? Why did they come up with that? What are they promoting? The county, the largest county in the state of Texas, should be directive in bringing industry to the county. They got land all over the place. Let's be productive.
Sure.
They got this new bridge that is coming.
I think 1848 comes from something either that was written in history books, and that was a time or period in our history that was kind of like renewal. It was a renewal of things. I'm not completely clear on it, but what the little that I read on it, it's meant to be like it's a renewal. So I think the county elected officials, the leadership that we call, at that time thought that was the proper term to revamp life downs. But I'll be honest with you, I've been to life downs once in my lifetime.
What was the purpose? It's livestock. Back then ranching was big, I guess. Exactly. I don't know. But the idea is that if that's the history, then they need to bring something of that history and embrace it and promote it. But right now, you don't see that leadership anymore. And then you have county commissioners that there's some productive and there's some that, what have they done to promote it? You have the colonias. Why were the colonias built? And
why did we have to go in there and fix it too?
Exactly.
Because it was development, right?
It goes right back to the private.
Somebody's private developer says, you know what? I just gave you the property. You figured out how you're gonna live out there.
Well, actually, the intent of this colonia that back then, I remember years ago, is that they sold parcels of land for recreational purposes. It was never intended to be a city. But there was a campaign going out there, get away from the city of Laredo, don't pay taxes. And people flocked over there. and they built a little.
I've never heard that explained that
That's
way,
what it
but
was.
you're right. Yeah,
That's what
you're
it was.
right. You're
Yeah.
right. Because I think as most of us have considered one time or another going out there getting yourself to ranchito
Yeah.
and 5 acres, 2 acres.
I'll put it'll do like the Arabic people, the nomads. They put a tent, and they live under a tent. Tax me on that, you know.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is taxes have gone to the roof. You know, they've gone up and they continue to go up. And the bottom line is that we go back to there's got to be some type of relief or tax reform.
Well, one of the things that I can bring to the table that I have a good understanding is county, city, their only duty and role in our government is to provide services. That's what they're there for.
Right.
In other words, the city, the sewer, the water works, all that's why they're there. Law enforcement, fire protection, 4 or 5 different ones.
All of those things
Yeah.
are acquired, yes, by all means. But you see, when they were selling these recreational things, they had no water, they had no drainage,
Yeah.
they had none of that.
No.
And as people came in there, I remember going to some type of a rally, and I think it was way back in, it was in the 80s, when they had, UISD wanted to do year-round schooling. And there were some people in those areas where they built these schools where they wanted year-round schooling because it was like a daycare center for all these people that were there. They were tapping into the water lines there because they didn't have water.
Yeah.
And I know that why is it in this nation that we live here, we have colonias, third world conditions. But it's because people wanted to, they wanted not to pay taxes. They didn't want to. Look at the problems that these cities have.
But where do you think that developers have a responsibility of it?
They should.
Because some people did want, to go out there and relax and just like have a tarp over their head and carne asada and all that. But then some of this become more residential. The home, carports, garage. They're not necessarily third world homes. They're pretty nice looking homes.
They are, not all of them were blessed with that. Some people had the money to do it, some people didn't. But then the average was that you had smaller homes, people moving there out of necessity because they didn't have no place to go.
Sure.
And look at the history. Who did you have living in those areas? Who was the one that said, we don't want Border Patrol to come in here? And they made a big thing, but yet they want government aid. They want this, but they don't want no Border Patrol. So you got to understand, there are laws, there are immigration laws, and that you have to live by those laws. That's another subject for another story to come by, but not to get off of it, but that is what's happening in this country. That's why you need common sense, common law. And we all say, we're an immigration nation. That's our history.
Well, sometimes common sense leaves you with no sense.
That's probably true, but you see it on Facebook. You see it everything. You know what? The Indians were here first. Mexicans were living here first. But there were laws that were made here. I remember my grandfather he came from Mexico. They were coming back when there was no immigration. People could move anywhere they wanted to. But that changed.
Well, and I respect that very much. I believe my own ancestors, if I may say it that way. Do you ever remember seeing vehicles with a Texas license plate and then a Mexican license plate?
They do that now.
Well, no, they used to do it. I think they done less of it now, in my view. But what I recall about that is because I had family who would do that because they were respectful of him being in Mexico and then having to pay taxes in Texas or the U.S. and they had a Texas license plate. So that means they went to pay. Mm-hmm. But right now, you don't have that type of, well, I shouldn't say this, right? But it seems like some people just lost direction about their responsibility.
Well, they figure a way how to skim a cat.
They figure out in a business sense like how to maximize their profit, I guess, and not talking about businesses but people. People are the same way too. They take care of their income at home. How are they going to spend it? What they're going to do? And they'll figure out a way. Well, if you say this, you'll get this.
True. It's like anything. Well, the new law that says that you don't have to have your car checked or vehicle checked.
I know.
That's crazy because that kind of puts.
Well, you're right.
Yeah.
I forgotten about that. You were talking about something that was going to protect everybody on the roadway. Well, now it don't matter.
Don't matter. You have cars that shouldn't be driving out there. All they care is you have insurance for it, and that's it. Liability at least. If you look at it and you study it, South Texas has the highest rated insurance because we're paying for those that don't have it. And insurance companies is another one. They don't lose. They always win.
I know we were talking about properties and how to invest and go ahead and use some money to buy your ranchito and all that. What I did read about the school district, they are selling some property.
Oh yeah. Getting into that one.
What do you think? Las Blancas? Where is Las Blancas subdivision? I have no idea. Or Ranchito, La Lomas, I know where that is.
It's South Laredo.
Well, then the Highway 59.
Yeah,
La
so
Loma.
that was what's up, going that
Going
way.
that way, okay.
Going that way, yeah.
But Las Blancas, where is that? I don't know.
I don't remember where it is, I have to study our
Yeah, I need to look it up myself.
Yeah, but getting into those 147 acres, or I think that's in question, they were bought so many years ago, because I remember attending these bond issues and
The bond meetings.
bond meetings.
The Blue Ribbon Bond.
Oh yes, and of course when they were opened up, they were saying, well, the mines area.
Maybe that's what it said.
Yeah, we need a high school, and their argument was, oh, the traffic is so bad, we can't do it. But yet they built several schools to the south, and the traffic was worse there. Okay, they addressed that. No, now they came back on the second bond issue. Well, actually, you need a couple of middle school to fill that high school. Okay, now you got two. But the real reason behind it, and I'm a United grad, and sure, the school had changed 3 locations. They don't want to build another school in our area because they want to make that United High School a powerhouse. I'm all for sports. I'm all for extracurricular, but the most thing that I like is the educational part.
Sure.
That's more important because how many football players are going to make it to the next level? We spend money not really addressing the real issue, the quality of the education of our children, the betterment of our employees.
Well, I'm going to stop you there,
teachers.
man, because I see a little bit different. I understand the fact of a school being built on Mines Road. I think it's overdue.
Yeah.
Quite frankly, only because of the safety.
Yeah.
And the community concerns. It really is.
Mm.
I believe that should have been done or should have been part of it. It wasn't. I understand it. I had nothing to do with it. You probably didn't have anything to do with it. But I believe one of the properties they're selling used to be a future location of a high school. But now they need it in order to draw up the deficit that they're going to be facing. They're doing it for financial reasons. And I don't blame the administration right now because they probably were handed this themselves.
They created it.
Well, I'm talking about who created it. I'm talking about individuals.
There's people in that administration that knew the problem back then.
Okay.
And they addressed it. They're still there. They want to no, it's because of the situation. No.
Mm.
You created it. Why did you build that swimming thing just to address the issues for some people? A majority, how many swim teams do we have? How many tournament teams do we really create? To me, it was just fleecing of the money. That's my personal opinion.
That's a good point.
Yeah,
I mean,
and the
make a
reason
very valid
you
point.
didn't need to do that. There's more other things that address the issue. And the issue would be, how do we keep our good quality teachers to stay in focus? We lose them because they can't make a living, How do we address the equality of the education of our children if we're teaching them on a Chromebook? They can't even write.
I'm sorry to say, Memo, and I think you and I agree, teachers are attacked a lot by many people, but even different groups out in the community who want to have that teacher teach the way they teach. And the district and the teachers that are at UISD and LISD, they have directives beyond the school board.
Mm-hmm.
They're coming from the state. They're saying, teach this. What was it? The critical race theory. They're being told what you can say. Oh, let's put the commandments now. They're being told. So I'm going to be honest with you. You and I will not agree completely on it. But let's get back to what I think you said, and I agree. The future of Mines Road area, all that area, I think is development. But there are a lot of warehouses, but there's also a lot of residential neighborhoods coming up.
Yeah, that's where government comes in. That's where government comes in. You see, government should lead but what people need, not what developers want. And you see, you have developers dictating how we go. And the only word that they hate is that word that we have the power, that we the people have. And that is
regulations?
No. It's called when you want to take the property away.
Eminent domain.
Exactly. You know, why? Because it's the good of the people. How do we go? But no, they don't want that. They're going to tell you where they want it and how you want it, and then they come back and they say, we're building you a beautiful subdivision. Okay, I've seen those subdivisions, and all of a sudden they go to the side. Why? Because there's no interest on the developer anymore. And people don't really want to take care of it. You have HOAs that are created. Are they good? They can be bad. Why? Because you get a group of people or a group of developers like we had in our history do the things that are self-interest, you know? It's the good of the people.
Yeah.
People need to rise and answer. This is where common sense comes in. You know, if it's right, it's right. If it's wrong, it's wrong. Who are you addressing the needs to? You have city government willing to capitulate to these people and give in instead of making a stand.
I don't know if the city owns any property in Mines Road.
Oh, they have a lot of property.
Okay, what would it take for them to give the school districts or school district?
Well, let's get back to Moeller Elementary. Why was it built? You know, you may not know, but did we need a school at that time?
School.
We didn't, because we had, I can go and I can attest it, we had Findlay Elementary School, we had Kazan Elementary School, and guess what? It served the area. Lobota wasn't even planned, okay? Hell, Green Ranch wasn't even in the picture. But they had the master plan that we are gonna build schools and we're gonna go that way. But yet the city and the government, they had a planning and zoning company that had ideas of what they're gonna protect the property values, okay? Moeller Elementary School is built, but for so many years there was a private road. Now, I addressed that to the school board and they said, well.
But is it Muller Boulevard?
Yeah, it was Boulevard. It was a private road.
Is it still a private road?
It was supposed to be a private road, but you know what? What school district builds property on a private road? So there were some little understandings because I spoke to the administration, and it was an oversight. It was an oversight on their part.
It's being facetious, right?
There was
no oversight. It was
an
intentional.
oversight, but there was some type of an agreement made that they were going to build it. But then the city stood their ground and said, "Wait a minute, fire departments and emergency units can't go in a private road." So in between them, they had to take care of that. And guess who was paying for the upkeep of the road? And it was private. Huh? Homeowners had to pay for that road for so many years, and we were billed for it. Just recently, they paved it. Because the city said, oh, it was an error that we never took care of. An oversight. But we taxpayers pay for that. You see, there's a lot of abuse on that. Is it right? Is it wrong? No. We pay property tax.
And you know, I'm not gonna lie to you, it's really a very, detailed thing that you're telling me about.
I know because we fought it.
I understand,
And
I
we
understand, and
corrected.
I remember hearing you speak on it and what you wanted and what you didn't want. At the end of the day, I guess, and I'm not trying to throw dirt at anybody, because that's one of the things that we didn't want to do, right? But at this stage of the game, how is anything's going to be resolved? Because I contend, again, that I think high school is needed in the area.
Yeah.
Secondly, this idea of what a private road constitutes and how can it be, is it better to keep it private or is it better to make it a public road? And so I don't understand it, I really don't.
The idea is that if you look at the format of every school district or a UISD school district, when they build a school, they do it in the middle of a subdivision to embrace the development of the homes so they have their school, because that's how you pay your property taxes and that's for school. Why do you build it in the entrance of a major highway, knowing that you were gonna have? And yet there were reports that back then, the planning and zoning had mentioned and said, hey, we don't agree with this, but yet they still built it.
Yes.
And they still went for it. Why? I ask people, and this is the reason I'm enthused, not so much a lot of people are saying, well, Memo, you're getting a talk because you have political aspiration. No, I don't have no political aspiration. If anything that comes out of your show is to educate the youth. Why? Because we're giving them something that we want to correct. We want them to start thinking. Why? Because homeownership is going to be something of the past if we do not come together and address the issue. Why? Because that's the fundamental rights of our country, the freedom, and common sense has to come. And the county dads, city dads need to start thinking of that. Why? What is their legacy?
I want to give you credit where you did say that there was already something written in behalf of the community, right, that did not recommend, should I say that, a school in that area.
Yeah.
And one of the topics of it was because there's no public roads. But having said that, I don't know if that made a difference anymore, other than for somebody else besides the school district to come in and say, do I really want to build adjacent to, or my warehouse or a subdivision? I think they would be hesitant because they don't know where they stand.
You have that. Look at the new United High School. They were talking about building some type of a business area in that, probably warehouses, I don't know. The thing about it, I made a comment and I got attacked because they didn't look favorable. Well, I was giving them a picture of what we went through. You see, there was a bill introduced, City Hall, that you couldn't operate a warehouse or commercial traffic around the school. Why? Because you don't know what these tractor trailers are bringing in, hazardous materials. We had, and I speak of this, they can check on it. We had a couple of hazardous material spillovers on Mines Road for years, and they had to evacuate people. You see, they don't have that. You don't know what they bring in there. Code enforcement. They say they have code enforcement. I have yet to see them. I encourage people to drive on Mines Road. Look at those these industrial parks. Drive through them and look at the conditions they are today. And you would think you were in Mexico. I'm not knocking it, but let me tell you, there are some beautiful industrial parks that were kept up, built up, but they're no longer maintained at that status. Who does that fall on to? Where are the code enforcement? They said they hired 24. Now, I may be throwing dirt on some politicians, but you see, I elect leaders, not followers. That's what I thought. And I always tell people that I elect, if you're a hard knocks person standing for the right of the people, people will follow you. And I hope that you never have to apologize to the people that elected you, because that's one thing that a lot of our candidates have lost, is the integrity and the self-respect. Why? Because a decision is made and our people are kept in the dark. That's where labels come out.
Yeah.
You know, we have a freedom of choice.
You said that very well. I appreciate that. It's important that the community be aware of the things that are going through the minds of residents, going through the minds of business owners, anytime they drive into a situation. To answer your question, I go through Mines Road very seldom. I just don't like the idea of a small, Nissan Sentra car next to an 18-wheeler where you're looking outside and the only thing you can see is the tires. I think it's a kind of dangerous, actually, if you ask me.
But you know, I commend our city council lady there, Ms. Perez, for one reason, is that she addressed that issue. And honestly, it's been addressed, and those prior to her, they were putting a Band-Aid. And I know she's fought, she's taken it to bring in the state, and the state has done. I see a light at the end of the tunnel, but whoever comes in after her can continue that. That's the type of leadership that we need. I may not agree with her in a lot of things, but when I do give her praise is that it's a lot better, it's gonna get better, but we need young people to get involved. Not old people like us, you know. We went to so many mistakes. I speak for myself, you know. My years that I want to enjoy from now on is probably join you on some little podcast here and try to educate our young people, and hopefully that. And I want a better tomorrow for my grandkids and future generations. The Laredo is good. The Laredo is very beautiful.
And I'm gonna not summarize. I want to add to what you're saying. The way government's supposed to work is our elected leadership, our elected officials, they have to regulate the growth. They cannot get into and say, remember, you're gonna do it this way, you're gonna do this business or that business. They have to regulate, though, how it impacts the rest of the community.
Exactly.
They have to regulate home builders. They have to regulate our streets. You know, how wide are they? How big are the sidewalks? You know, you do hear and you recall, and you and I, that's the fortunate thing about you and I can recall a lot of things.
Yeah.
And with the last thing I want to know is somebody getting run over because the sidewalk was too narrow, right?
Bicycle trails.
Bicycles, you know, things like that. You know, we all understand they have a right of way at the same time, but, you know, don't tell me that bicycle is going to stop a car or a vehicle. So you gotta have some common sense too, right? I mean, I don't allow my granddaughter to go out to the street at all.
You can.
And so it happens even in a residential area. Yeah. What happening in our areas, like, and of course I'm referring to United High School. We did put a resolution that we didn't want commercial traffic on International.
Yeah. And
again, but we don't have the power to enforce it. That would have to be the city.
The city did. They passed that.
Okay, well, I think you're right, and I remember sharing some of that information with your council person at that time. And so I've never been shy about coordinating things with others. But at the same time, you know, we come into questions of what is in fact correct. Again, not what's right or left or parties. It's just as what is the correct thing to do to help our community and how to make our community safe. Other than that, you know, what I just want to suggest again, and I'm really going to harp on this again, is the UISD future economically. What are we looking at? They're selling property. They're going to try to bring the budget up to balanced budget, things like that. Is that the right thing to do?
That's something that they have to address. Let me tell you, in the corporate world, you don't cut from the bottom. You cut from the top. You streamline that. Is it necessary that we have so many assistant superintendents? You know, you have so many directors, you know, you're protecting the top, but how about protecting the bottom? You know, I mean, you've got to give these teachers something to look for. And that incentive, you know, I think at the state level, teachers should have a better medical group. They should have a better, retirement program. And they should be vested, maybe like the colleges, I don't know. but the quality of education should be equal across the board. And I think if it's free education, then we should go back to the old ways. And I say old ways is that teachers should be allowed to teach this mandatory, I guess, state level guidance, whatever you call stars or whatever. I think the quality of education should be made, I guess, equal across the board. But fundamentally, I think that so many restrictions are patterned to select a certain area. You know, South Texas has a bilingual, I guess, education. Yeah. And so basically, the quality of education has to be addressed by sections, you know. You have, you go to this school, they have all the funding. I think everybody should be entitled to the same type of opportunities, you know. Yes, colleges should be free on some levels. How do you address that? It takes money, okay? Maybe there's other options out there. You can tax corporations to the highest, but maybe if they legalize gambling, look at the revenue that they can promote. But
what makes you think it's gonna go to?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Don't
we need honorable people in our position, honorable, ethically guided individuals to operate a school district, a city government. If they don't have that, they lose that insight.
Yeah.
It's not gonna work out. Now, I'm gonna give you a government's role in how to handle, deficits, and that is, you never cut people.
No.
You never cut people. You never touch their income. UISD is the largest employer in Laredo, in Webb County. And so when you end up cutting people, the community's losing out. Yeah. Businesses are gonna be losing out. Your stores are gonna lose out because the UISD population with its employees is a major force in retail sales in Webb County, in Laredo. And so you don't cut staff. You do have to cut certain amount of services in order, maybe very small, but you actually bring people together where if somebody leaves, you don't replace them. But you have to transfer that work out to everybody, the rest of the people. So what John Doe used to do, just one duty or two, well, guess what? He's now going to get 3 and 4. So that's the way you overcome this. And it is already something that our financial experts, and I say us because I am part of our community, and at UISD, that's how it's going to work. I believe so because just from my experience that they're going to make it work. But I only had a question about, do we really need to sell property? That property is going in value every day. And so do you really want to let go of something that you kind of going to have to use in the future for a school on Maestro, things of that nature? Yeah. And again, I don't even know where these properties are, but one is Las Blancas subdivision and another one is Las Lomas. So when I read that in the agenda, I said, wow, okay, what are they planning to do? Well, they want to sell, we know that. But
no, they're going to have to, because they're trying to create that deficit, cover it, The idea is that they're not going to raise taxes. They want to raise taxes. That's not the answer.
And maybe, I guess, being the government employee that I was, I always felt that taxes were part of our doing business. That you do raise them if you want to have a certain standard in government services. But I know that it doesn't, really resonate with people. They don't like it. They go, why are you raising my tax? Well, the thing is that, if you want a certain degree of quality service, we do pay. You do want to have something as far as raising taxes. But that would be at the end, very last option. In other words, because you do gotta pay the employees, you gotta pay for services, the special ed people, the people who go in athletics even, they want to have it. And yes, it's an issue, that it's not gonna be resolved here. Memo and I, we're not gonna resolve it.
No, no.
But it's something that maybe
People need to talk about it.
they need to talk about it. They need to, but at the end of the day, don't close our minds to it, right? Don't close our minds because everything is doable. And you as a business owner and me as a former government employee, we understood. Sometimes we have to change, modify, we adapt. That's what we do.
Yeah.
That's what we do.
You have to justify your cost, and that's one of the things you have to do. Why am I charging this? Well, things went up, but the folly is that when you have questions in the integrity of what's happening, the bad spending, the inappropriate spending, then that draws attention. Trust is something that you have to regain, and that's something that this board has lost.
I'm gonna change the topic. I'm not sure how we're doing with time right now. Do you have the time, Memo?
Yeah.
What time is it?
I'm looking at 11:45.
Okay, we got like 15 more minutes. There was a big deal with some orders that our president gave. I imagine that some of the retired military officers contended. You might have heard about it, maybe you didn't, but I did. Essentially, they came on TV and I'm not saying a podcast, I think they just did make a commercial saying, reminding officers, reminding the soldiers, you do not have to follow illegal orders.
I heard about that. Well, the problem is this. Sometimes when you're the commander-in-chief, there's a chain. They're given an order to do something, depending on the nature of the order. They must obey. Now, these senators, these congressmen, they took an oath. They can do the orders and they can say, well, I do it under protest, and disallowing the actions of what it is. But what they're preaching is treason. Bottom line. You don't do that. It's like Mutiny in the Bounty. Remember that, the movie? Okay, well, it's the same thing. The law has to be applied. Now, was it wrong? Well, if it was wrong, justice will be served. People will then have to answer, answer to a court or tribunal or whatever. But the idea is that the law is the law. And the thing about it is a chain of command. I mean, when you defy the president or you defy the executive order of a commanding officer, you face that line. You could be tried, even in the case of war, you could be charged for treason. Now, these people are making a decision on a political issue that they don't agree. But guess what? This guy was voted in, and you have to abide by the law. You can protest. You can say, I do this under protest, but I will follow your orders. I'm just following the chain of command. So that's what is being noted.
What I noticed about all of this was that they never said don't obey lawful orders. And by that I'm going to remind the listeners, the audience, and most recently it's been brought up several times in my communication circles, Nuremberg, the Nuremberg trials of Hitler, where the fact that you are given an order to do something does not necessarily mean that you are exonerated from having to answer to it. And that's, I think, what this senators or representatives, all were former military people. They were saying, look, officer, you took an oath to the Constitution. The Constitution is clear, we protect everyone under our umbrella of the United States government and our citizens. So if you're given an order that doesn't look right, doesn't sound right, doesn't smell right, you do have a right to do it. Now, that was one thing. Remember Lieutenant Calley in Vietnam?
My Lai Massacre.
My Lai Massacre. Those people, especially him, was tried. for having done something that was unjust, being a human. Right?
And there were two sides of it. There was two
Well,
sides.
but he was convicted.
He was convicted. Yeah, for humanity. He was convicted.
The crimes against humanity.
Yeah, that's
right?
what it was.
And
Crimes
so
of humanity.
what's transpiring right now is many of the things that we're seeing. You know, people are being told, you know, arrest people just if they touch you. You know, hey, you know, you're a military person and no one's supposed to touch you. Well, it gets to be very difficult.
That's illegal. See, that's the problem. The problem is that we have all this, oh, you touch me, it's an assault, you know? And who brought that? The legal department. And that, of course, they abide by it, you know? The thing about it, it's not so much.
And the reason I bring it up because I had heard it in a conversation. I said I want to see what transpires from this discussion, and it's really kind of at the end of the day we might not agree, like you said,
Yeah.
and but you know there's a different point, and I kind of try to understand it. I understand, yeah, you know, hey, should the president ever be questioned? Yes, but you know, can he direct an officer? He shouldn't be the one doing it. He should do that chain of command, right? So if he tells somebody else who tells somebody else, and it gets around.
Well, there's a price to be paid. You know, if you really believe if the life was going to be done, you were going to kill an innocent person, you could refuse to do that, and that's it. But if it was in order to evict somebody, in order to, I guess, immigration, basically, it's where it's coming down. Laws were broken. Laws have to be enforced. If laws have to be changed, then change it. You know, but the idea is that when they preach mutiny or they preach that, and they have an obligation to carry the laws and the fundamentals of the law, you're not hired, you're not elected to put your public opinion or to put affiliation.
I'm glad you mentioned that because I talked about that before, where you know keep your personal opinions separate than what your duty is as a city councilman or as a board trustee, a school board trustee, commissioner. You know, I don't really care to know what your personal opinion is. Just do what is right and understand what you're.
Like you said, the state gives you directives.
Yeah.
Well, you have to follow them.
Yeah.
You may not agree with them, and you make your own. I am doing this because the state law requires me to do this.
Exactly. That's listen, man. Listen. That's one thing. And you know, when I think about all of those situations that people get confronted with at the state level, and people sometimes might know or maybe they forget, there is still a whistleblower act. A whistleblower protects the employee. Whether it's in the state government, county, or city, if they crowd, hey, you know, I'm attesting to the fact that Mr. So-and-so gave me this order, and I think I did it, but I will now have to show or report it that it was an unauthorized or illegal or
moral or whatever.
It's called the Whistleblower Act.
Yeah,
and people need to be reminded.
But
of
you
that.
know, either way you make a stand, there are consequences, you know. Or whether you want to be in good faith with our Lord, you don't cross it. Or years ago, this is going back into where I think it was the Justice of the Peace wouldn't marry two men or two women or something. And he said, I can't do it. I won't do it. And he was being forced to do it. He said he wouldn't. He made a stand because of his religious beliefs. And that's what he said. So what happened to him? He loses office, he gets replaced. So there's consequences, whatever decision you make. It's on that individual that makes that. But when you are working or elected by the government, your opinions don't really matter. You can protest it, you can defy it, but you have to carry the order.
Exactly.
If not, let the fall shift on the person that directed
and the
it.
laws are changing quite often regarding, you know, that aspect of gender affirmation and gender marriages and all that. You know, personally myself, I said, you know what, it's not my business. Who you love, it's you who makes.
You have the freedom. You have
the
the freedom of choice. You know, I tell my friends that they walk on that side, and I tell it the best way I can. Maybe I'm being sarcastic. I said,
but don't be rude.
I don't mean it.
Don't
No, I said, we're in a jungle. I don't swing in the same vine that you guys swing. So
I heard you say that before.
So you, you're in a country that you're free to do that, free to protest.
That's right. That's
and
right.
And our God gave us that the freedom to choose.
That's right. That's absolutely correct. I think, Mr. Memo, or I think we're going to close this episode. Frankly speaking, I know we hashed quite a few things, and
We get off track because it's all ad lib. I'll be
Yeah.
honest with you, whatever we
Yeah.
feel like speaking. But I encourage young people, if you hear this out,
yeah.
you may not agree with me, but guess what? Learn to stand up. Do it for yourself and do it for the children that God has given you or graced you with. But do it for yourself to show leadership and get involved. You won't regret it. You know, there was a song that says, you gotta lean on me. But you know what? Learn to stand up. But injustice only continues because people fail to stand up and speak up. Get involved.
Yeah. And I add to what you're saying, young people, young adults, I know it's hard, especially if you have family. You get involved with your kids in playing t-ball, getting involved in little league, swimming, cheerleading for young ladies. You know, you're there already taking time, and you're probably exhausted. But what I would ask is that always try to keep abreast of the information that you can. Keep current with what's going on, because if you're going to vote and you don't understand why you're voting, then that can be a problem too. You need to really, not necessarily research, like a research paper, but you do have to read on some things. You have to bring that in. And that to me is not only a young person's responsibility, it's the middle age, it's the adults, even us, right? We need to read up on things so we can get familiar, because we don't know it all. And that's the first thing about somebody who's really trying to do well, is that we don't know it all. But we certainly have what I think going that direction that we want to take this, which is to keep the public informed, to keep them articulate, to keep them knowledgeable of what's going on. And there's issues. I tend to write little notes so I can remember what I want to talk about. I never really use it. I bring it here, and I think you've seen this paper before, but it's just topics that I hear in the community, I read in the paper, I see other people who are candidates, and it's going to be very interesting next few months. That's what I'm going to tell you.
Current events, that's basically what...
Current events.
That's what comes to mind. Young people need to find out and ask the question, why are we doing this, and why are we in this position, and how can we come out of this? And it's bringing unity.
Yeah.
And education is very powerful.
Yeah, I think one time that we need to stress is that we come together as really like a family would do, which is, even though we might have differences, that we come together and challenge ourselves to do the right thing for Laredo, for Webb County, for the state of Texas, and for our nation. But at the end of the day, start with locally, and then move on.
Control what you can control, but don't forget, we still fly under one flag. That's the United States of America, and we're all Americans. Might have difference of opinion, but guess what? At the end of the day, we all bleed the same color. And that's what we have to do, is stand up as an American, and we have a freedom of choice. What road we choose, we respect it, and until...
You have the last word. Well, thank you very much again. We are going to conclude this episode of Frankly Speaking. Probably next week we might have a guest or two guests who have heard about us and they want to talk to us. One could be a UISD individual, or another one is actually a young graduate from high school.
You need young people to come aboard and bring a following on his part.
Yeah.
The idea is that we are at an age where we're passing the baton to the next generation. The next generation has to be more informed and more productive. And don't stand on the sideline, jump in.
Go for it. Que se nos quite el miedo. That's
That's
what I
right.
like to say. All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll talk to you soon, guys. Thank you. Bye-bye.
You do it.